What's up, guys? Dear Leo. Welcome to the first episode of Probably Philosophy. But before we begin, happy Lori and happy Bhogi to everyone who celebrates it. Others, still stay happy, guys. You don't need a reason to be happy. Philosophy is all about knowing nothing. You start with knowing nothing and you end at knowing nothing. But in the process of knowing nothing, you end up learning a lot of things. So let's embark together on this journey of knowing nothing. But before that, let me tell you how this will function. I have a few questions asked by you guys, of which I'll be answering selective questions in this episode as time is pretty scarce. The questions for this episodes have been collected through Twitter, but for the future episodes I shall be taking questions not only from Twitter but also from Instagram and YouTube comment section. The first question is by Lucky. She asks, why are we social animals? Why do we need to talk to someone to let it all out? Okay, this question has got two parts in it, two questions, you could say. So I'll answer each question individually. Let's talk about the first one. Why are we, humans, social animals? From what I have seen and what I have read about, you could say that humans are social animals mainly because of evolution. Even before the first human, you could say the Homo genus came into existence, a few species of animals found out that staying together is better for some instances. Just like trees, there are a few trees which coexist because they help each other out in some way or the other. Similarly, humans started coexisting, animals started coexisting first because they used to help each other out in some way or the other, making their lives easier. And once it started off, it would have started off at a really basic level where it would not have been visible much. Uh, Later, as time progressed, as those animals evolved, those multicellular animals evolved into bigger and complex multicellular organisms, humans came into existence in addition to other primates. One thing I'd like to mention that people say that humans have evolved from monkeys, which is actually technically a wrong thing. Humans and monkeys, we both had the same ancestors, but humans did not evolve from monkeys. That would be a wrong thing to say. Right, heading back to the question. It is because of the evolution, the process of evolution, like Darwin's theory of the survival of the fittest. We started to coexist together, and with time, the bonds start to get stronger and stronger with time. You could see. Now I'll bring you back to your own personal experience for now. The people with whom you have spent more time, your bond with them would be really strong, right? Similarly, since staying together has been a key part of all of our cultures, irrespective of from where we belong. You can see the Indian subcontinent, you can see it in the Middle East, you can see it in the European regions, and you can even see it in regions with scarce human population, such as Australia. Here, when I refer to scarce human population, I am referring to the Aboriginals who originally used to live. Even they were few in numbers, but still they used to live in groups. Now it all started off because humans, when they lived in groups, they could avoid predators more effectively. They used to live alone, you could say. Now we don't have any predators other than humans who threaten us of our lives. But since it has been happening for millennia, it has been ingrained into our DNA that staying together is best. Let's head to the second part of the question. Why do we need to talk to someone to let it all out? I'd say that our thoughts and feelings, they are like water. If you keep it stagnant, they'll grow algae in them. I agree that not all are same. Not every person needs to let it all out or they need to talk to someone. But there are a majority of us who need to do that. And it's pretty connected to the previous part of the question, because that's how we started off culturally. Since we used to coexist, we started talking. I wouldn't say talking, we started communicating with each other. And once we started communicating simple things, we tend to communicate complex things with it. Because you see, everything has a butterfly effect. Start with something small, it'll end up with something huge. Just like animals, multicellular organisms started living together for a little while to for some safety or the other, for some purpose or the other. Now humans coexist as social animals. Once you start sharing simple things with people, you tend to move further ahead and share complex feelings and emotions with them. And once you start doing something like that, it releases chemicals in your brain, which at times relaxes it. And the brain just gets used to that set of chemicals being induced. And since it wants more of that particular chemical to be induced, it just asks you to talk to more people. The pun was intended here. Okay, on the topic of talking about talking, let's segue to our next question, asked by @Faraday4. He asks, why one day or a period of time we can be extrovert and the other day don't feel like talking to anyone? This is a good question. This is a pretty good question. And I think most of us have experienced this at some point or the other. There is just one thing like I'd change. Instead of extrovert, I'd call it socializing with people. And the other time we don't feel like talking to anyone. See, again, this will come back to your brain releasing chemicals, because brain is a weird thing that controls us, and the brain has never realized how it controls itself, so we just flow with it. When you talk to someone you like, the brain releases few chemicals. Sometimes it even releases serotonin, which calms you down, and it makes you feel elated. But if you get the same thing again and again, without much gap between the dosage, it kind of tires the brain too, because it is a lot of work to socialize mentally and sometimes physically too. Now when you stress out your brain or stress out a part of your brain through socializing, it requires rest to some extent. And so obviously it asks you, your brain requests you to not exert pressure on itself and not socialize basically, so that it can regain its energy, which can alternatively also be called mental stability or mental peace for this particular instance. Well, I hope that answered your question, Faraday. Let's move on to the final question for this episode. Varshang asks, how does one decide what's right when morality depends on what majority deems right and not the core values? This is a really interesting question, and I like this one a lot. Now let's break this down first. So let's talk about what morality is actually. You could call it as principles or rules of conduct or a statement to something which you should adhere to. This is pretty similar to rules, but rules are way too different than what morality is. Right. And you have asked that morality depends on what majority deems right and not the core values. Now, the thing about core values is it differs from person to person, from time to time. Now, you've said yourself that what majority deems right. Now, when you take into account what majority is, majority could be anything. Majority could be 51% of the people, or majority could be 99% of the people. Any way or the other, each and every moral conduct that has been established all throughout the history of mankind would offend someone. And when that happens, it's really difficult to say what's right or what's wrong. I'm a staunch believer of the fact that there is nothing right, there is nothing wrong. There are facts and the different ways in which we perceive those facts. If you talk about ISIS, they are a terrorist organization which believe that only Islam is the sole important and the prime religion, and all the other religions are fake and should not exist. From our point of view, and by our here, I mean normal people, the majority in air quotations, they see it as something wrong. Whereas for the people in ISIS, they think that that is right, and for them again, they are in their majority. Now, here comes a dilemma of which side to go with. And remember, with every human comes their own biases. I am biased in my own way. You are biased in your own way. And whenever a bias exists, you can't be always right. Now, talking about the core values. The core values would differ too, just like in the previous example. For a member of the ISIS, a core value for them would be killing of other people who don't agree with them. For me, core value would be not hurting anyone else. And because of this difference, there exists difference in morality. And because of the same difference of opinions and thus differences in core values, there has been existing a disparity between what morals mean for different people. That being said, let's take a look at the question now again. How does one decide what's right when morality depends on what majority deems right and not the core values? Simply, I could say that no one has the right in air quotations, to decide, but at the same time, each and every individual has got the right, again in air quotations, to deem their own opinion, to have their own opinion and believe that their opinion is right. And the thing about opinions is that it's not wrong, it's not right. It's what you believe in. And because of this, there would be possible problems that would exist, mainly in governments, because while ruling someone, and by someone I mean a country, it becomes difficult to take into account each and every individual person's opinion. You could probably do that in a small group of people. You can maybe form a particular set of rule of conduct uh, using all the multiple permutations and combinations to give out something which would satisfy each and everybody and which would adhere to each and everyone's opinion. But when more and more people get involved in a particular thing, it leads to chaos. And remember, humans are social animals, and thus we are all always chaotic. That brings us to the end of the episode, guys. I hope you liked it. I would love to know your perspectives on these questions, or even on the little statements or phrases that I might have said throughout this podcast. Feel free to tag me on Twitter at the rate darklordspeaks underscore, or DM me on Instagram at darklordspeaks. You can also share your views and thoughts in the YouTube comment section. And the same time, feel free to ask your questions, ask your statements. Just put ahead your thoughts and use the hashtag probably philosophy, and I'll check them out. And hopefully, you'll be featured in the next episode of the podcast. Alright, guys, see you soon. Stay happy, stay peaceful.